We've been working with Fujibi for over a year now. They've been supporting or sponsoring this show, particularly entire last year, almost from the very beginning. But in addition to this, we've used their product at the Academy, and I personally have been using it for a number of years now for myself. In addition to all this, they just released, Gary?
They've got a ton of new stuff, but this one is the Last Samurai gi that I'm looking at fujisports.com. They've also got the brand new gamer gi, a ton of great stuff. Check them out, fujisports.com. Bags, mitts, spats, rash guard, anything you need for your jiu-jitsu journey, you can find it at fujisports.com.
If you're a long-time listener already, you already know what Roll TV is. However, if you're a first-time listener, you might actually find this very interesting. Roll TV, online video online platform that we actually put together, available at rollacademy.tv for all that are interested and want to take their jiu-jitsu to the next level.
Yeah, I definitely love it. From lesson plans, fully customizable. Most, if not all, the seminars we've done here at the Academy are there too, from high class practitioners. So definitely check it out. And there's a little coupon code too.
Oh, absolutely. If you want to get extra 30% off on the memberships, make sure you type in Roll Radio as the coupon and you get savings.
Who doesn't like saving money? Welcome back, everyone. You know the deal. Please hit the like, subscribe, listen, download, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you do listen. This ensures that we can continue bringing you the great guests and amazing content like we have for you today. On this episode of the Roll Radio, we have an incredible guest. She is an athlete with a fantastic competition career, an instructor, writer, and founder of the nonprofit SubmitTheStigma, which gives people a platform to discuss and seek help for mental health issues, Erin Herle. Erin opens up about her own mental health issues, how they affected her life both on and off the mats, her triumphs and failures in competition, and how the positive aspects of jiu-jitsu and its community can benefit a person's mental health, all with her unique perspective and a wonderful sense of humor. Here's the Roll Radio with IBJJF Asian, South American, and 2018 No-Gi World Champion, Erin Herle.
Welcome to Roll Radio.
And we're live.
Yeah, here we go again.
2022.
Yes, you said it right this time.
I know.
If anybody listens to the recap, you added 10,000 years to the date.
I practiced.
Uh-huh.
The first guest of the year.
Yes.
How you feeling after the vacation? We haven't seen each other for.
You went on vacation. I was here the whole time.
Well, it was vacation away from me.
It was. It was nice. It was quiet. I had a lot less to do. But Thomas is never on vacation. You will get messages from on every platform imaginable, all hours of the day or night. But I'm glad you got some time away because you're always here doing a lot of stuff for everybody. So I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Well, so we are starting this year with a very exciting story. Erin, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Thanks for designating about an hour or so of your time to kind of chat about this. How are things going on your side?
Good. New Year's bringing in the same feeling that last year had. Starting a new quarter in my grad studies and just training and just surviving like everyone else.
Yeah, it's been very interesting last couple of years. And you are you're particularly a huge proponent of support network for individuals who find themselves in this unique position of some struggles. Am I incorrect?
Yeah, mental health. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we get into that, tell us how did this all start? Like what got you into this huge? I mean, SubmitTheStigma is at this point is quite visible organization throughout jiu-jitsu community, right? You've done quite a bit of work for several years now. How did this all start for you?
In 2016, we made it an official nonprofit, but prior to that, in 2015, my dad died by suicide. And I had always dealt with my own issues of mental health, but I was not raised in a home that said, here, we're going to go get you some help. It was more like, I don't know, but my parents didn't really want to face it. They didn't want to have to go to a place where they had, a psychiatrist or a psychologist, where they hadn't had, much luck. And it took until I started jiu-jitsu when I was past 20. So I was about 21, 22. And I went to therapy for the first time and started finding, self-help and helping myself, and realizing that I have generalized anxiety disorder, bouts of depression, and ADHD. So it's definitely a journey that was my own. And then once I kind of put it out there and said, this is the journey I'm taking, other people were like, hey, I want to join in on that. So Submit the Stigma became a campaign where initially I I held a sign that said, Submit the Stigma of Mental Illness. And that's kind of what it started as, just a campaign. I had always been visible. I'd always blogged and put my life on the internet kind of thing. And, being on the jiu-jitsu competition circuit, people wanted to know what I was doing, how I was training. I was training at Hamala Bahal, Cobrinha, Marcelo Garcia. So that automatically made people kind of wonder, like, what is it like to be, a sponsored athlete, all those things. So with that, I took that limelight, I guess you could say, and I made it really transparent. So these are my struggles. And I found that a lot of people dealt with the same struggles. So being a nonprofit, we've really started actually, more recently making it into a more established nonprofit. But what it's been for so long has been a campaign to just share and create a community that feels like it's okay to say I'm not okay. And a lot of the time, I know that like jiu-jitsu competition, that's been my world. And obviously physical health matters. You can't compete at the highest level if you're not physically fit, if you're not physically sound. I mean, everyone kind of has nagging injuries, and everyone takes care of them a little bit differently, whether they just sort of keep training or they actually go to a doctor. But we all know that going to a doctor is probably better. If your knee's hurting and you keep training and then you create some lasting injury that's never going to get better, you're never going to compete at the same level. It's the same as if you have a performance issue or a confidence issue. You need to be able to speak to someone about it and heal that part of yourself and figure out what you can do. So that's kind of the basis of Submit the Stigma. And I just chose to use my own personal story to get people engaged, and feeling that people already kind of knew me as a competitor. They were like, all right, well, she's able to do all this despite having issues with mental health.
Well, I think that's the beautiful part about your story, that, despite these, obstacles and things that you faced in your life, you're still putting yourself on quite successful path when it comes to the competition. And then, in a way, you pay it forward with saying, I'm going to use this vehicle to really bring awareness to this mission that I have. Right. So that's the beautiful part behind this. But I'm curious if you could take us back. At which point of your life do you notice these struggles? At which point of your life do you find yourself where maybe you are unable to speak up, but that things are not the same, or things are harder for you?
I grew up very emotional and really, really sensitive. So a lot of the advice that I was given was like, don't care so much about what people think. And, having anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, means that you have anxiety from out of nowhere. Like, it's not something that, oh no, there's this homework assignment that I have and it's stressing me out. No, the everyday thing, you text someone, right, and they don't answer. My mind will go to, well, clearly they were driving and they got in an accident and now they rolled over and they're dead and they can't answer my text. So all these like worrisome thoughts and worst possible outcome has always been part of my life. And as a kid, my mom used to call me the exorcist child, because whenever I would get so worked up with my emotions, she said my head would spin. That kind of gives you an idea of what kind of child I was like. And I was a difficult child, ADHD, things like that. So these were always kind of prevalent. Of course, I didn't know that they were like actual issues. I was just stuck with the thoughts in my head, and the thoughts in my head would tell me like, you're awful. Kelsey didn't want to hang out with you, therefore you suck. And like, I would do this thing when I was younger where I would, even though I knew so-and-so would be busy, I would sort of make a call list, and I'd call all my friends. Cause I'm 32. So I grew up where you actually had to call the landline and be like, hey, is Kelsey home? And so it was like, even though I knew that they were all hanging out together and either I wasn't invited or I never wanted to go, I would sort of put insult to injury and like make this list of all these people who didn't want to hang out with me. And it was really weird. I would sulk and sulk, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And so it wasn't until jujitsu where I figured out that like I could do things on my own. So I found that I was able to take control of my life, and there was a lot of similarities between jujitsu and mental health, like support and routine and goals, all of those things. So being able to relate the two and realize that it helped my mental health so much was really important. And then I found mental health, and I found a psychiatrist, found, you know, all those things. And I started my journey, and I just stayed transparent. And it was like, hey guys, I realized I had this problem. I don't know if you guys have this problem, but this is how I went about it. And people either came with advice or relating to me and things like that. So, you know, knowing that I have mental illness took a long time. I just knew that I was different and that I struggled. I just had no words for it. I didn't understand why I was so different. Everyone just told me that I was too sensitive.
How did you find jiu-jitsu? Before, I mean, I
So,
assumed that you did it.
yeah.
Did you know what jiu-jitsu was before you stepped on the mat? So how in the world?
No.
Because let me just frame this. It seems like a jiu-jitsu from a outsider perspective would be not such a good idea to do for somebody who's struggling with some of these things, because I mean, the failure rate in jiu-jitsu is pretty high. I mean, we get smashed all the time. I mean, we get swept, reverse, submit. I mean, it is just mind-blowing. And you say that this literally was the pivot point in your life. So
Yeah.
how did you find it?
Jiu-jitsu is a struggle. And it was like, I am familiar with struggle. So I used to attend hardcore shows. I used to, when I was in high school, I listened to hardcore. I used to go down to the local Cobalt Cafe in the San Fernando Valley, went to the Alpine in Ventura. I used to go to all these shows where people would like head walk and like mosh pit but the lyrics were always about some sort of purpose and passion. So it was like people were screaming for a better life together. I don't know, it kind of felt like that. And I was always gravitating towards like the male type of thing. Like I've always been like really assertive and aggressive as a female. Like I'm not dainty, I'm not really classy. And so I was on an internet forum called the B9. And that was a record label, and they had a forum, and that's where everyone sort of connected from the hardcore community. And there was this guy, Kenny, who was coming out. He was selling cookies or muffins or something, like baked goods, so he could come out to California and compete at the Pans. This was 2008. So I was like, I don't know what you got going on, but if you want to hang out when you're here, let's hang out. So I picked him up, and it was just like, it was one of those things where it's like a small community, and he was vouched for, right? So that I know said, oh yeah, Kenny's cool. I'm like, okay, cool. He's not going to rape me or something. And so I hung out with him, and I went to the Pans because he wanted to check on his teammates. And that was where I saw jiu-jitsu competition for the first time. So when I was introduced to jiu-jitsu, I didn't see it as a martial art. I saw it as a sport. And I think I'd always been really competitive, but afraid to compete because of my own fragile ego of being like, whenever someone would be like, let's race, I'd be like, nah, you're going to win anyways. But really, I didn't know how competitive I was. Now everything is a competition. And so I found an outlet basically and was like, I want to do this. I used to roughhouse like wrestling with my guy friends. I remember when I put Jim in a cradle and I felt like I was the master of the world because he was such a little like prankster bully to everyone else. And I was like, oh, I got you. So normally women don't do that. But I did. I thought I was like one of the guys. So just sort of all came in and was like, oh, this is something that I can do. I can literally go and choke people. And it's okay. They let me, kind of thing. You know, it's their supervision.
Would you say that you became a different person when you found after you found jiu-jitsu?
No, I think I became authentic. I think I was finally able to say,
yourself.
This is me. I did, because a lot of the things that I am are very different from the people that I used to hang out with in school. Like the preppy girls. I was in Girl Scouts. So all of the girls were like all hung out in a big group of girls. They all went to the mall together. They all did this with their families together. And I was always like, I don't really feel like doing that. That's not fun to me. I'm going to go to the skate park and hit on skater boys. I like Avril Lavigne. That was the time. And so I was always dressing like really outlandish. And I was just so like, I'm that person that wears like a bright orange shirt for this, just, I don't know. I just feel like being bright. Yesterday I wore a crew neck that I found at Goodwill that has a fuzzy koala on it. And it's just bright blue and it has little gems and it's weird. And I realized I just like making people laugh, even if it's at my own expense. This is my hot dog case. Gets everybody. They love it.
Oh, you gotta see this.
it's-
If you're
I-
watching this on YouTube, you gotta see this.
I noticed there's no ketchup
Yeah,
on that
it's-
hot dog.
No, but there is mustard.
Always.
And you know, I like both, but I mean, if I ever feel like putting the ketchup, I'm sure I could just, you know, stick it on. So I realized that being my authentic self made me question less. So instead of going into a social situation and being like, oh my God, should I have said that? Should I have done that? You know, that 3 a.m. like, oh God, I'm so embarrassed to be me. I realized that jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of weirdos in it and everyone's trying to find their place as well. And as long as you're a good training partner and you go there and you put in effort, people are like, cool, yeah, I vibe with you. And then you come out with the hot dog phone and they're like, oh, you're one of those people. That's okay.
Why do you think jiu-jitsu more so than other sports, other martial arts even attracts the weirdos?
There's no governing body. There's no high school jiu-jitsu. There's no right way to do it. And so that's, I think, why I gravitate towards it. I realized that if I wanted to do something with it, it was entirely in my own hands. And I think what started that is when I was writing. I was a blogger when I was like a white belt. And I started doing interviews because I realized, oh my God, everybody cares what Hamalo eats, because he was my instructor, my first instructor, right? And this is when we had a really small team. I would just go pick him up, take him to a tournament with me. People would come up to him, take pictures. I'd be the one taking the picture for them. And they would just say like, oh my God, this is so great to meet you. One time we were not even near the tournament. We went to a Chipotle and some dude was like, are you Romulo Barral? Like, I don't even train anymore, but you look familiar. And he's like, haha, that's me. I'm like, this is so cool. You know, he impacts people who he doesn't even know. And so, yeah, it was like, people are like, you could be the celebrity, but also you could go train with the celebrities. Like I was training with a celebrity and I just happened to walk into a gym and it just happened to be Hamalo Bahal. So social media was coming around, I was writing. And so I started interviewing and I had a pulling guard zine. It was like this little printed out thing I made off of Microsoft Word. And then I started kind of shipping it out to people using Facebook and I think MySpace even to like say, hey, do you want to read this? Can I send it to you? You put it on your coffee table. And because it was weird, like my first issue had Hamalo and it had Benil Dariush, who was at the time, I think, purple belt and just kind of on the scene. And now look at him. He's this crazy, famous UFC star. And so I realized like, that's kind of weird that you guys care what he eats and you want to eat what he eats because you think that's going to produce the same results that he has. But sure, I'll give it to you. So that's what I used to do. And I realized how accessible it was. Like Luana Alzagir was my idol at the time. And here I am looking through Gracie Mag and I'm like, there's a Corral ad. So I would take it out and I'd put it on my cubicle wall where I worked. Like that was just like what dreams are made of to me. And then I'm training with her at Cobrinha's and I'm interviewing her and she's giving me her old gi to thank me for training with her for Worlds. Like everything was accessible. And if I wanted to be that person, I could. I didn't have to have a certain background. I didn't have to have money necessarily. I didn't have to have an athletic background. It was whatever work that you put into it was what came out. And so not having a governing body, not having like a set I guess just like curriculum was so interesting to me. And then people caring about what I did on the mat was just really interesting because I'm like, I'm just like you. They're like, yeah, but like you're winning stuff. And I'm like, I don't know how. I just kind of go out there and do it. I'm really nervous about it, but sometimes I pull it off. Yeah, so I think that jiu-jitsu is just this. It also obviously brings difficulties. You know, like running your own seminars and opening businesses. There's no blueprint.
Right.
So you have to kind of do it on your own.
You're right. And as I'm listening to you, I'm listening to a whole story of yours. And it appears to me that you went from this individual who cared a lot about what people think to the point where you said they're not my friend, they, you know, like these very dramatic reactions, simply somebody not returning a phone call,
Dramatic.
to going literally 180 degrees the opposite direction to say, I don't care what you think. This is what I'm going to do. Like it, don't like it, and boom, here I am. Take it or leave it. Was that, how long was that period of time when this self-discovery took place for you?
It's constant. It's absolutely constant. I don't always feel comfortable with myself, always, right? And so what I learned was whatever I feared, I would go towards. So I started competing 3 months in. I was like, you know what? This is something that I could fail at, but I'm a novice, so who cares, kind of thing. Like, I'm a white belt. Who cares if I win or lose? And I didn't have any pressure. So I went out there and just did the thing. And I was so nervous and so like, I have no idea what to expect, and literally almost like dripping in sweat from anxiety, which I still
walk me through
get,
your first
but,
competition.
oh my God. So I went to Riverside. And when I signed up, I heard that, you know, the mumbo jumbo around the gym was like, oh, we're all going to drive out to this tournament in Riverside, and we're going to do a tournament. And I ran over to Homolo and I'm like, am I good enough? Like, could I sign up? Could I enter? And he's like, sure. Like, yeah, do whatever you want, kind of thing. Like, cool. I back that. And so I went on the computer at the gym and I signed up, and I'm like, okay, I have no idea what to expect, but this is so fun. I'm part of a group finally. Like, I'm part of like a team. This is so cool. We're all going to wear the same shirt. We're going to be a group. I have friends. And so we went out there, and I remember I wore I used to wear a tank top, just a regular like purple tank top with like a pink sports bra underneath. Like, I didn't even know what a rash guard was. So you go into the bullpen, and then I'm like a grown adult and I'm standing with other grown adults, but I feel like a child because someone with a clipboard is like, okay, you're going to line up here, and then you're going to follow me, and we're going to go over to this mat. And it was just like, okay, I'm going to listen to everything this person tells me to do. So I go to the mat, and the first match I look over, and this woman, she's a grown woman, and she's got 3 stripes on her white belt. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I only had like 1 or 2 at the time. So I'm like, she is better than me. And then after I realized that before the match, she comes over and she goes, if my makeup gets on your gi, it washes out. And I was like,
Important
okay.
parts. I mean,
yeah. So I was like, okay. And I saw that she had kids, and I'm just like, holy shit, she's going to have mom strength. Like, what is going on? I actually have footage of my first match, and it cuts off in the beginning, but I think it's right when she like pulls guard on me, and I just go into autopilot mode, and I ended up passing, and I get into mount. And I remember I go for an Americana, but instead of grabbing like this and coming under, I was like trying to grab the wrist, and I was doing this, and you just hear Homolo go, other arm, other arm. And I'm like, I don't know. So then I just do this really, really crappy arm bar, and I get it. And I'm just like, and everyone's cheering, and you just see me just go, like, it was so weird. I was like, people are cheering that I'm doing something right. I've never had this before. And everyone gives me high fives after. Like, if I didn't have this video, I probably wouldn't remember anything. Like, yeah, it was just all moment. Just, yeah. And then the second match was a ferocious woman who was funny because she's like, nowadays she is this published like poet and nature person, but she had like rabies when I used to compete against her. She would just like try to, oh my God. So I go for this takedown, and it was the one where you both have the same grips and you shove them down, and when they come up, you go under the arm, and so I go for the takedown, and then she's on my back. And I'm like, I have no idea how that happened, but her forearm was in my arm. I mean, her forearm was in my mouth. And so her forearm's here. And I'm like, if I open my mouth at all, like, it's going in, you know? And I was like trying to just adjust, and it's going in, it's going in. I'm like, I have her arm in my mouth. This is so weird. Like this is cannibalism. Like, I didn't choose to be here. She just sort of, she did this. And so eventually she like chokes my face, and I tap. And then she like practically breaks the arm of the other girl that she fought. Okay. And based on the buys and the bracket, the girl who got her arm broken was in second, and I was in third, even though we had the same amount of like matches stuff. And I was like, I don't get this. I don't like that. I don't like that. I feel uncomfortable. But it's funny because the woman that got her arm practically broken is actually Jiva Santana's wife. She's a black belt as well. We've kind of like both come up. So it's kind of funny because, you know, there's a picture of her and I just both looking like not knowing what to do. I think it was both of our first tournaments. And so from there, it was like, there was so much adrenaline. At the same tournament, Homolo jumps in to do a match against Josh Barnett. Josh Barnett just throws on the gi. And there was this whole controversial thing because they thought that Homolo tapped and all this stuff. Because, you know, Josh Barnett's a super submission guy, catch wrestling, all that stuff. So, yeah, it was a really memorable experience, but I felt a lot of shame, I think, after, because you watch a video of yourself and you're like, oh God,
Why?
that's awkward. Because I look at what I saw for the Pan Ams in 2008, and this was 2009 by the time I really started like training and stuff. And I'm like, I don't look like those other confident people. I look like a dweeb, you know, maybe I'll get better at this. And I just kept trying because I knew that I was a dweeb and I wanted to be less of a dweeb, if that makes sense. And then when I started winning stuff, I was like, this is really cool.
Was that your perception, or was that just your perception though?
Oh,
right. I'm sure everybody was the same
everything.
way. Everybody was doing the same thing, making the same mistakes, but you're in your own head still, right? Thinking
Oh
that.
yeah. I live up in my head constantly. I am constantly thinking like, oh my God, how am I being perceived by others? That's just always been my thing. I've always been extremely self-aware in that manner. And it's been really difficult to not be that way. So I try to embrace it. And that's kind of my journey still at 32 years of age. I still care about what people think of me. It's just that self-presentation, you know, and especially because when I look at Homolo and how he was, even though he was a black belt, spent so many years to be where he was, I was like, I want to be like that. How can I be closer to being like that? And I remember one time we went to the trials and I lost after like so many different matches because I had like 3 different divisions. It was one of the first like Abu Dhabi trials in Vegas. And I remember him giving me this speech because I was basically just crying in the back seat when we were driving home. And he was like, you know what, Erin, you don't want this life. You don't want to be a world champion black belt. Go be a world champion doctor. Go be a world champion teacher. This is not a rewarding career. In his words, you know, it wasn't like exact words, but yeah. So then I was like, and just because he said that, I was like, hell no, I'm going to continue doing this. Even though I was already in college and I was like, I hated it. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I'm a very indecisive person. I get decision fatigue, I guess you could say. And I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And I get frozen. But on the other token, when I sort of go on the mat, it's literally autopilot. Like the time starts and you're just like, I gotta go. This person is trying to kill me and I just gotta go. So you get out of your head very fast in jiu-jitsu. I think that's what helped.
Do you think that that's the key point behind jiu-jitsu really changing your life and giving you that vehicle to have that outlet and self-discovery that you have done over several years now?
Absolutely. There's obviously other facets and a million different facets because there's the martial art portion, there's the teaching portion, there's the competing, there's, you know, the comp training versus, you know, basics and fundamentals. And it depends on your intent. And my intent was always to sort of like, I want to be the best. Like, I want to be cool. Like I had it, and it wasn't proving myself to others. It was proving myself to myself.
And see, this is huge, I think,
seeing,
because a lot of individuals, a lot of people who practice jiu-jitsu and compete particularly, they find competition as this vehicle to present themselves to their teammates or to their family. And I often feel that number one of the top reasons why people actually get discouraged from competing is that fear of being judged. The fear, what will my teammates say if I don't do well? What will my husband and wife say? What will my kids say if I lose? I mean, that's end of the world, right? And you kind of swing in the opposite direction. You say, I don't care. This is just I'm doing this. I'm doing. What goes through your mind? Walk me through that process, because I think a lot of people struggle with that, even though they don't talk about it.
Well, it wasn't so much like that I cared about what people thought in terms of like the people that I already knew. Like once I have a very small like inner circle and I'm really weird and stuff. And once you get into my inner circle and I start just being weird and asking weird stuff and talking about weird stories. Like, I'm like, okay, you get me, you get me, you know, like all my training partners at Dynamics that I train at, I will come in there and just be like, guys, I ate this weird thing yesterday and I feel weird. And I'll just divulge information that they do not care to know. And they're used to that. And I'm comfortable doing that. They know what to expect, right? But when you compete, you cater to a different audience. That audience is people who are looking towards you as an athlete, as a female competitor, as someone who's like opening up the stage for them, who is like, wow, I could do that. Like when I saw females fighting, competing at the Pans 2008, I was like, I want to do that. And then all of a sudden, here I am, I'm doing it. And so once I'm able to get out there and become a competitor, then I started comparing myself to the other competitors. You know, like when you're a novice, you look at other novice and you're like, cool, we all suck. And then you get into a place where you're all good. And then instead of me being like, look at how far I came, like I'm a purple belt competing now in Europeans, when before I was just a white belt in Riverside, I didn't know what she was doing. Instead, I'm like, look at Bianca Bastilio. She's the shit, you know, and I'm going to have to fight her. And look at Anna Carolina, and look at all these other girls that are like in my divisions or that are like up and coming or even ahead of me. How can I be more like them? And that was really hard to compare myself. So that became something where also when people started paying attention to my competing, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I have this invisible audience. Whether I have an audience or not, whether they care whether I win or not. I mean, I was like, I have to win now because I'm a competitor and I won something and I want to keep winning. And if I don't win, then I'm not even here. So when I would lose the first round at Worlds or Pans, which happened multiple times, I would just crumble because I'm like, oh my God, I dedicated my whole entire life to this and I suck. Or like I was expected, like people wrote a blog about me. They said that I was going to get into the finals and I didn't get into the finals. I have no medal. There's nothing to show that I was even here, even though I dedicated my entire life to this because I'm an all or nothing person. So nowadays, especially, I compare myself to other people. So it's not so much that I'm afraid of like my family and my friends not, you know, supporting me because they always will. It's just that they don't matter in terms of my competition, if that makes sense, because I'm not trying to prove anything to them. I already know where I stand. It's finding those people that are going to come to my seminars, that are going to invite me to have seminars, that are going to buy future instructionals, that are going to want to buy things when I make a shirt that has my name on it, those types of things, when I'm trying to build my brand, basically, because I have a bachelor's degree. I hated doing it. It took me 7.5 years to finish. I'm in grad school, but I value my black belt more than anything else. I think that that was a journey that is so unique and so hard and so difficult. And I value that way more than anything else. And I want it to be worthwhile. And it's hard because in jiu-jitsu, you say, I'm a black belt and I compete or I won this. And you go into the real world and people are like, oh yeah, my son's a black belt in karate. He's 7. Yep. And that was really difficult. So just sort of kind of equating that, like when I say I have a master's degree, like it's going to be easy. I just say I have a master's degree and like, oh, you're smart, or you're dumb for going into debt. I don't know. But when you have a black belt, unless you're within that group, right? Like within the jiu-jitsu community, you don't really understand and respect how much goes into it.
I agree 100%.
So being among those people, if I want to be like a representative, it's easy to be a representative of jiu-jitsu outside of jiu-jitsu. Very easy. Because people are like, what is that? I'm like, I don't know. I just show people and stuff. And then other people who are in the community, it's like, how do I represent myself? How do I kind of put myself in a category of my own, and build that? Because yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes in my head when I compete nowadays, which I haven't in a little bit. I get really nervous because I'm like, wait, now I'm supposed to win. I'm supposed to win. So if I don't win, people are going to think that I'm shit, which is necessarily not true. But I think I see it as an opportunity that I usually fail at.
Do you recall one of those moments in a competition where you felt that things didn't go according to your plan and there was a sense of failure and you felt like the entire world collapsed on the top of you right as it was happening?
Oh yeah, a lot. If I didn't win every time, every single time I lost was pretty much that feeling. And one of the main ones was, well, there's a couple, but when I was finally dedicated to competing full time, I was dating like a jiu-jitsu champion on the other coast, and we were both together for the Pans. He was warming me up and getting ready, and I'm literally slated to win this thing. I'm a Cobrinha purple belt, competitive, like I'm in it. And I go to my first match, and there's a girl from Norway, and I'm like, I don't know who this girl is. I'm gonna beat her up. Well, it didn't go to plan. I got nervous. I don't know. I froze. Just that's what happens, right? We ended up like double guard, all this stupid stuff that I don't even really play. I didn't really play my game because I was so focused on winning that I lost the first match. And we always have this ceremonial Brazilian steakhouse food, you know, at the Worlds. And so my mom, oh no, this was Pans. Yeah, Pans. And so we went to go get it. My mom always buys it for me. And we get the steak and we go to sit down in the seats, and I look at it and I just start crying over my Brazilian steak. And I literally at that moment felt like I didn't deserve to eat. I was like, I am nothing. I'm not even here. I don't have a medal. Like no one's going to even know what happened to me in the bracket. And I just dedicated my whole entire life to like cutting weight to feather, eating right, making sure that I'm always at training, getting beat up in training, really putting everything into it, getting a hotel before the event, getting set, you know, doing everything right. And then I just didn't win my first match. And that was so embarrassing. I always felt embarrassed. Another time as I went 2015, I won the Nogi Worlds at brown belt. It was my first year at brown belt. And then a couple months later, I go to the Europeans and I win at brown belt, Europeans. And then Pans comes around. That was January. So February comes, March, end of March, Pans. And I fight Array Alexander from Team Lloyd Irvin, who I'd gone against at blue belt. And I knew she was tough and all. And I felt like there was a bad call, but either way, I lost the first match. I'm like, you know what? She's a good competitor. I'll come back. Worlds, which is June or May, depending on the time of year or whatever. And I draw Array again, first match. And she just totals the shit out of me. And I lose again. And I'm like, how is that I can be a Nogi world champion, European champion, and then lose to the same person at Pans and Worlds? Because every time everything doesn't go your way, Europeans, you're like, it's okay, we got Pans. And then things don't go your way at Pans, and you're like, it's okay, we got Worlds. And then you fail at Worlds and you're like, oh, I got nothing, dude. Like this is awful. So whatever, in my mind, it was always like, here's this big picture of all this dedication that I've created and then put forth. And here's this tournament that is the penultimate event that's supposed to represent everything that I've dedicated myself to. And then to have it just, is just like, oh my God.
This has to be hard.
How does it?
This has to be hard.
It was so hard because I just equated my self-worth with the medals, with my Instagram following, with my competition results. All of those things came into effect where it was like, well, I'm nothing because this is where I put my value. It's not like I have my own family or a marriage or a career. This is my career, whether it pays me or not. That was my career at the time, and I was failing at it. That's how it felt.
So what makes you go back the next week?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, it did all fail, I'm a failure, screw it. What makes you go back Monday?
Well, you have friends that immediately come to your, brown belt Pans. The following year, I ended up getting third. It was a really close call, and I cried on the mat, and I cried and cried and cried. And then I went and got myself a hot dog, and then I ate the hot dog on the podium while I was waiting for another person and to come onto the third place. And it's like an iconic
Wait a
video of
minute.
me.
Did it have ketchup on or not?
It did. It had ketchup and
Thank you.
mustard. So when I went there, I was like, I had cried for like so long. I cried on the mat. I cried on the side of the mat. My friends literally came into the barrier and were like hugging me because I was just so distraught. And then I went to go get a hamburger, and they had no hamburgers. I was like, well, I want a hamburger. They're like, well, we have a hot dog. And I'm like, fine. So then I go on the podium and I'm sitting there and eating, and Christina Barlan, one of my best friends, she was there to give me a video of Hot Dog Queen, and like that kind of went like viral, and that helped me put things into perspective a lot, where it was like, okay, this is funny, she didn't win and stuff, and she cried and stuff, but here she is being a good sport and not caring, and that kind of put things into perspective. But prior to that, it was the people around me, definitely. The people around me matter so much, because when I am telling myself that I am the worst person ever, they're like, no, you're not. And because I know they know me, they're able to point out things and really build me up. Because sometimes when you're so hard on yourself and as critical as I am, you need someone else to be like, stop doing that.
What do they
Stop
say?
putting yourself down.
What do they say? What's the words that you got from them in these moments that really turned you around?
That this moment doesn't define you. That this moment, even though you're putting this as the ultimate evaluation of all of your hard work, this is not it. Think of all of the people that you've inspired. Think of your training partners that you helped who did well that day. Think of your own, like, dealing with failure builds your resilience for the future. Things like that. I mean, also, we're gonna go eat Korean barbecue right now. So, and I was like, all right, you got me, because Korean barbecue is my favorite. So yeah, I was able to get over it in the moment, because in the moment it's like oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Right. And then once you kind of settle down and you eat a hot dog, things get more clear. But in the moment when things are so heightened, obviously I came off the mat with full adrenaline. I was so close to winning the match. I was in the semis, and I had literally, all I had to do was either choke her or get the other hook in. And I had 30 seconds to do so. I did neither. I literally had the lapel, I had one hook in, and I was like, all I need to win this is to either finish the choke. And she was so good at it, because obviously if you have one thing that you're trying to do, that person's
Right.
just going to defend because there's 30 seconds left. That was how that match ended. And I was so distraught, because I felt like I should have won. I felt, there were so many different feelings, but having someone else to be like, look, you're still awesome. Like, this doesn't, like, you're still funny. You're still weird. You're entertaining. You're a good friend. All of these other qualities that you have that actually define you in the real world. That's where you excel. So just because you didn't win this tournament doesn't mean that you are a failure in general. And there's always next year. There's always the next tournament. There's always the next one. So that's where the resilience kind of comes in, especially when you go back to training and it's just like, okay, back to the drawing board. Of course, Worlds is always the hardest. I always went to a depressive episode after, because you go the first half of the jiu-jitsu season where it's like you're cutting weight, you travel, you compete, you come home, you binge eat for a week, you go back on the diet, you compete. It's just constant until after Worlds. And then Worlds, everybody kind of goes, okay, it's summertime. We're going to go and live our lives, because we just spent the first 6 months of the year just gnarly. So when I would go back to training thinking everyone was going to be there to train and be like, okay, we're just going to go back at it, everyone was gone and the camp was over, and all the Brazilian guys that came to train with us went back home, and all the visitors, and it was just this like dead zone almost. And that was really hard sometimes when I was ready to be like, no, I didn't do well, I can't rest on my morals, I need to go back to work, I need to do this. And then it just, no one else had the same motivation, because the motivation ends. So that was pretty difficult too.
You obviously talk about a lot of some of these challenges and difficulties as you were facing up to these competitions. Do you recall one particular moment that brought you a huge satisfaction point, a big smile on your face? Maybe even wasn't a gold medal, but one of those moments where we were like, damn it, this was awesome.
So I would say it was in Abu Dhabi. I was at the tournament in Abu Dhabi, the Abu Dhabi World Jiu-Jitsu Championship. So they changed the protocol over the years. Before it was you go to one event, and if you win that ticket, you get the golden ticket, and then they fly you out, all those things. You get the package. Then they changed it when I was a brown belt to you have to compete at all the different tournaments, the World Pro tournaments, and then you gain ranking points. And then if you're the ranking point of your country and division, which was brown and black for the UAE, then you would automatically win that prize. So when I got my black belt, November 2017, I fought the Europeans. I fought Bia Mesquita in the final, and I felt really cool that I got to fight her, but fully unprepared. Like I was like, well, that's the top, and I'm not there yet, and that's okay. And so I had this issue with my ovary. I found out that I had a cyst/tumor, and I had to have major surgery to get it removed. So while I was waiting for my insurance and everything, I was like, who am I? What am I doing? I don't understand. Like, what do I do if I can't train? Who am I? So I finally get the surgery, and the recovery was really fast. I just sort of got back on the mat after like 3 weeks, and I had that ticket to go to Abu Dhabi. And I was like, you know what? I've got friends there. I'll go. I'm just going to take up the ticket because I earned it. So I'm going to take this free ticket to Abu Dhabi, live in the hotel, all that stuff, free buffet, best part. And I'm going to just go. So I decided while I was there, screw it, I'm going to compete. So I took the last stitch out of my belly button the same day. I had laparoscopic surgery. So it was like the two that go in, the camera goes in your belly button type thing. So they weren't big incisions, but they were incisions. So I took the last stitch out, and I went out and I competed, and I had no pain. I lost to a brown belt, which would be awful.
Hold on a minute. Hold on a second. So you fly out there with intent of just hanging out and kind of milking the price. And then you say like, screw this. I'm going to take the stitches out and I'm going to go compete.
Yeah.
Are you out of your mind?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I, I was like, this is whatever. I go in the repechage, I win one, I lose one, didn't get a medal, nothing. But it was the first time that I was like, you know what? Like my goal was just to see what my progress was and sort of see where I'm at physically. And I had no pain. And I, went out there and did the thing. Obviously I wasn't training. I wasn't in shape. So that's why I lost. But going home, I was like, now I'm ready for Worlds. I can go train for Worlds, and we're on it, So yeah, that was one of the moments that felt like it wasn't all about the medal. It wasn't all about, oh my God, I'm on this grand stage. Of course I wanted to win, but I knew, knowing that I had this handicap, it was like, what's the best that I could do? So I was really satisfied, and I didn't have that pressure. So I think that's why it was like a good feeling.
Good for you. I mean, that's a really cool story to hear, that the point of satisfaction wasn't from the ultimate victory, but it was of the victory to yourself, if you will. It was you testing yourself. And despite of the result, it was still satisfying to you because you actually went out there and you've done it.
Exactly. I took the 16-hour flight. And I just went and did it. It was super quick and easy.
And free buffet. I mean, you can't beat that, right?
So good. So good.
I'm just saying.
Everything's coming back to food today.
Hot dogs with ketchup. That's what it's all about.
It's usually hot dogs.
I love food.
Listen, I mean, it's mind blowing, all the details that you are sharing with us. And obviously, there's a lot of people out there who are in similar situations in yours, and they don't see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. Let me spin this in the other direction. What can coaches and instructors do to help students who suffer from some of these anxiety points and the struggles of competing, not competing, or having these visions of what do they think, what others think about me, and creating these perceptions? And this has to be hard as I'm listening to you. What can I do to help my students?
So I'm really excited now because this is what I'm studying. So I'm in a sport and performance psychology program, a master's program, so that I can become a certified mental performance consultant, which is similar to like what a counselor or a therapist or psychologist does, but there's no licensure, because I don't want to be in the clinical. I don't want to sit in an office and tell people you have ADHD, so you need to do this, this, this. I like using sport. I like using physical activity and that connection. Obviously something like Jiu Jitsu, because that helped me. So I've learned a lot. I'm actually in a course right now called positive coaching. And that's exactly what pulled me to go to the University of Western States, where I'm at. And it's about pushing someone without breaking their will. It's about getting someone to be their best without making them hate it. And there's a lot of issue with wanting, they call it the writing reflex. So you as a coach, you want to step in and say, okay, if you just change this, this is how you're going to get to where you want to go. But what happens is it's the advice coming from the outside. And a lot of the times you're going to hear your students say something like, yeah, but, or, I want to get there. I just don't know if I can. And so you never want to hear that from an athlete. I used to think that, okay, I'm making progress if I gave someone advice, but sometimes they don't need to hear that advice at that time. So you need to help them find it from within. And there was something really big for me, was two things. There's ego oriented motivation, and then there's task oriented motivation. And it's easy to see it with jiu-jitsu. So you would say task or mastery would be like the martial arts, meaning you go to training and you just want to get better. You want to have better guillotines. You want to make sure that Frank doesn't choke you the same way every day. Those little goals. It's just literally getting better and being your best self. Like, how can I be better regardless of anyone else? And then there's the ego, meaning I'm looking around and Bob over there has been a blue belt for 3 years, yet I've been a blue belt for 4 years. And so I should be better than him. Or comparing yourself, or looking at someone's belt. Like when I said in my first competition, she's got 3 stripes. That doesn't mean anything. That could mean that she was usually late and she started coming on time, and her instructor was like, sweet, you get 2 stripes. Like, that's her journey. That has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with the sanctity of jiu-jitsu rankings. So knowing the difference and being able to question, like, why do I want this? Do I want this for someone else? Or do I want this for me? Do I want this to be the mastery? Do I want to get better on my own, regardless of the competition results? Or do I only care about competition results? And only caring about competition results destroyed me. So I know that that's not extremely healthy. Obviously, you have to care about other people if you're competing, because that's literally you're comparing to other people. Also was Carol Dweck's growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is something where you like, I have my talents and I can't really develop them further. It is what it is. And if I don't succeed, it's because I'm not right for it. Versus growth mindset, meaning I'm not that type of person. Okay, well, you can be a little bit more of that person. You can work on it. You can get better. Things can change. You can grow. And there's a lot of in-depth conversations that she's had that deal with the two things. But knowing the fix versus the growth. Okay, am I getting stuck in an ego mindset? Am I getting stuck in a fixed mindset? So being able to understand that and divulge that to your students, kind of obviously not like as a teaching thing where you're going to like be like, okay, guys, here's a PowerPoint, but knowing that these exist and being able to identify it kind of goes, okay, they're worried about this. They should be worried about that. And then of course there's motivational interviewing and all of these things to bring it out of the athlete themselves, to say open-ended questions and to ask them, like, do you look for change talk when they come up to you? Coach, I really want to do this competition. I just don't know if I'm ready. You could say, okay, well, what do you think will get you ready? They give you some information. And then you say back, okay, so you think that if you do this, you'll be better. Okay. And you have a conversation with them and basically bringing it out of them rather than just telling them what to do. Some people are just like, please tell me exactly what to do. I want to do it. Like, just tell me exactly what to do. I'll do it. But a lot of people are like not wanting that. They want to do it their own way, but they also need help. So it's like hand holding. And I realized that just because you're a coach doesn't mean that you're the expert and that you know exactly what that person needs to do and think. And letting them sort of figure it out themselves. There's a lot about that. It's really, really in depth. And I'm so excited, to like continue my studies, because I'm like, everything I learn goes exactly to jiu-jitsu, or as a competitor, or as a coach, or as a consultant that I'll eventually be. I'm really excited to create safe training environments where people feel like they can be themselves, just like how I found,
And yeah, I think you touched on some very important points. And Gary and I, we've talked about this to many guests in the past year and a half, but it's being good jiu-jitsu practitioner does not make you a very good coach, or doesn't necessarily automatically make you a good coach. These are two different skill sets, two different components that they have to be blended together. But a world champion does not mean phenomenal coach, and a phenomenal coach does not mean world champion. They could be together, but they are very separate skill sets. And you really dig deep into this, the psychology part of understanding people. If we can't understand who our students are, and more we can cater towards their needs, more successful they will be. Jiu-jitsu is not cookie cutter. And so I'm really glad you say this and really break it down in the way you just did.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing this through Submit the Stigma. We're trying to build a program where people can learn about how to create safe, mental health conscious environments and how to deal with crises and scenarios and situations. Obviously, not like harsh things, just how to be a better listener, how to be more curious, how to be aware of the breakdowns that you see, or because people get frustrated, right? And some people just kind of walk away from that and they're like, I don't know what to do. But just understanding where people are coming from and having that empathy is huge. Empathy goes a long way. And it's a little bit more than just putting yourself in someone else's shoes. It's being curious, it's being understanding and wanting to understand, wanting to value that person as a person, not just for their ability or for their competition results.
Yeah.
And so treating people as humans is huge.
Yeah, not only listening, but actually hearing them, right?
And that's what they call listening statements. So if you tell me something in your story and I come back and I just say it in a statement, it both confirms that you're listening, right? That you're there and you actually care, but that you are willing to understand, and there's a curiosity that you are really looking to see what my view of it is and how you can help me specifically. A lot of the times we focus on technique. How can I'm having trouble passing this guard. What do I do? Okay, well, you're going to have to worry about this grip. You have to break that grip first, right? It's very technical, right? It's technical. It's okay, that's easy. Do this, A, B, C. But when you're like, okay, I really want to pass this guard, but I keep on getting nervous, or I keep on, I grab these grips and I freeze. That's a little bit different. That's okay. Well, that's obviously a very, very particular situation that you are having, and let's see where it stems from. And a lot of jiu-jitsu practitioners and coaches are not going to be psychologists. Like, they don't know how to get on that level. But if you remember that these are people, they have their own issues that they have before they step on the mat. It takes more than just saying, leave your ego off the mat, leave your problems out the door. That's not always easy to do. And someone's agitation or irritability is going to come on the mat sometimes too. They're not always going to be this cheerful, jolly person, especially if they have stress. It's not easy to just be like, okay, I'm at jiu-jitsu, forget all of it. Ideally, yeah, we say that. We say like, oh yeah, you don't think about anything else. But really, when you're training, you have a lot of time to think, except for sparring. Sparring is the one time where you're like, I'm in it. I'm here. I don't have time to think about what my wife just said to me that made me angry. Like, I am here and this person is trying to, choke me, and I'm going to defend, and I'm going to, but there's a lot of room and time on the mat during a training session where you can have other thoughts, and you have to recognize that people are human and they can't just shut those things off.
One of the things that I really love about everything you talk about your organization is that you're not trying to fix the world. You're just trying to make it a little bit better. And by listening, supporting, empathy is a big thing that you mentioned several times in this conversation. You're just simply being there for people, and them knowing that you're there for them just makes this whole situation much easier. Do you think that all of this could be fixed?
No. No. I think that people bring their own issues into the world, and you can't fix everyone's issues, right? But you can make it so that it is a safe place where someone doesn't feel like when they come on the mat that they can't talk about their issues, or they can't be who they really are. Because authenticity is not about wearing the color that you feel like wearing that day. Authenticity is not putting a patch on your gi that makes you different and original and unique. It's not about that. Authenticity is feeling what you feel and being who you are in that moment and being okay with it. That's authenticity. And I think authenticity is huge in jiu-jitsu. And when people are starting out, they have, like a white belt, for example, their only job is to just absorb. Like, that you don't choose a guard yet. You don't even know all the guards that are out there. Just explore, be curious. It's your job to go to class and just learn what's out there. Maybe you don't do deep half, but you're going to learn it because you want to know when you're in it, things like that. So it's the same with, life, right? You start out and you're like, okay, so I'm going to learn this technical thing. And then when I have more experience and I can make it my own, that's when it counts. And there's a lot of authenticity in the game. of jiu-jitsu. It's literally, we play jiu-jitsu. You have a game, you have a style. We talk about these things. So you as a human, I swear, one time I was teaching a private to this girl and I was like, I bet I know your sleeping position. You sleep on your side in fetal position, don't you? And she's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, that's why you love this position. It's so weird, but your personality and your wants and your dislikes, like they all sort of come into jiu-jitsu and form your game. And like there's always that guy that's like, I only play deep half. like you can't pass my guard and I can't really do much, but I'm going to stay deep half because this is where I like to be. And there's that guy that like really likes to like grip really hard and do everything like with so much power. And then there's the other person that's like, I'm going to guillotine you from every single position. There's all those different types of people and they're reflections of who they are. And you want that in a gym. Like you want that. You don't want everyone to just be uniform, you want them to be themselves and feel comfortable. And when someone feels comfortable, they ask questions. You know how many times I've gone to a seminar to teach and like people are so afraid to even ask a question because they don't want to look dumb. They, all the time. But when I go to my seminars and I start spewing off about like weird stuff and people go, oh, okay, cool. We're going to talk about that today. Or I make jokes. People are like, okay, it's cool to laugh. We can laugh. All right, cool. I create that environment where it's not only just fun, but you learn. And when you are in an environment that is fun and open, you're more likely to learn. Absolutely. You're more likely to learn.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, is that why now? I think I read recently where you said, teaching, you're enjoying teaching much more than you ever did in your competition life, or enjoyed competition. Is that why? Is it that interpersonal connections you're making with people, or is it for your own something that's going on inside you?
I realize that it's all about connection and I really care. As much as I like don't have a lot of like close friends, like I have a very small, tight circle. And I realized that that's okay. And that's fine. And I can know a lot of people and I can impact a lot of people, but I don't have to let them in completely. And so but I realized that when I'm authentic, other people are authentic too. So teaching gives me that opportunity that I thought that I wanted. I thought that by being a competitor, I was going to show myself. I was going to show my best game because I thought that I had to be cool. Because it's cool to win. It's cool to be like, oh my God, do you see that nasty armbar that girl got? Like, that's what I thought I wanted. That's the attention I thought I wanted. But then I realized that no, I want people to pick my brain. I want people to ask me questions. I want people to ask about my experiences and learn from that. That is more impactful, I think. And it's not just about talking about my mental health. It's talking about my experiences, being like, girl, I know how hard it is to cut weight. Like, just, you want to hear that when you're in that situation. So I want to be that for other people. So when we talked about those situations when I had really bad experiences, I wish that, my now self could be there to soothe and help and nurture that person. Because I think that's what people need. They need a little bit of nurturing, and whether they admit it or not, they do. And I could do that in teaching. And I like smaller seminars. I like going around, making sure everyone understands. I like listening to their questions. I think it makes me a better teacher when I can hear different aspects. Like someone's like, I don't understand this. And I've got to be like, here's a new analogy. Cool. That's a new analogy that I'm going to take and I'm going to teach it to the next people. And so it makes me a better person. It makes me connect. And I think that I make more of an impact on that 3 hours that I spend with someone, rather than just being cool on the internet and posting my butt or like winning a tournament or something.
I don't know.
The last comment completely.
Well, yeah.
I mean, posting my butt, like that's fun too, right? That's impactful. It's quite impactful.
No judgment whatsoever.
I don't know how much time we have. I know we've been at this for an hour, but the internet's come up a few times, and hopefully you've got a little more time to give, but with explaining your background and everything you went through growing up. And then at some point early in our conversation, you said you're living your life on the internet. And then this statement here, we've talked about authenticity. And I've heard you in a different interview. I won't bring up the person, but you said that person's, it's a huge person. They're not being their authentic self in their internet persona. And I wonder how yours has changed over the years. When you started out or when you started building your following, who you thought you were then, what you presented yourself as, and who you are now and what you're putting out there?
Well, it's definitely what I wanted to be. So it was like, if I wanted to be a black belt world champion, what do black belt world champions do? Well, they get sponsors and they post about it, and they post the gear, and then they have the hashtags that they tell you to post. Or, you say, oh, here's my technique of the week. And then they have like this flashy technique that like doesn't work. Or you post like me in a bikini which I never did because I'm not that comfortable. But if I were to post like a bikini picture at the beach, it'd be like rest day, because like you're just nice to look at. So I tried all of those. I tried all of it. Like if you go back at my Instagram, like you'll see, like I either tried to be funny sometimes, I tried to be like sexy, I tried to be really like authoritative, like, hey guys, this is how you do jiu-jitsu. And none of it stuck until I started. Well, actually, no, it's not like I started to. I always did this, but I realized it really stuck and I got shared on viral, whatever. Either funny, self-deprecating, or, just saying like, this is my struggle. If you have this struggle, and then just having those people comment and be like, me too. Oh my God, I'm so glad that you wrote this. Like, I've been dealing with that too. That's where I sort of realized that I connected with people most. And if I wanted to have legit followers, then that was going to be it. That's where I was going to find it. And money. I want people to come to my seminars. I started a Patreon. I wanted people to pay me that way. I did an instructional. I was a brown belt. I wanted people to buy that off of jiu-jitsu, and I wanted to make money that way. I wanted to sound interesting because sometimes people only want seminars to take a picture with that guy, like Kit Dale, right? Kit Dale's like, yes, he knows jiu-jitsu, but he went through a time where it was like, they just wanted a picture to be like, I'm with Kit Dale, the funny guy. So they would pay the $50 to go to his seminar, maybe not wanting to learn from him, but wanting to get a picture with him, things like that. So when you get desperate for money, you do things that aren't necessarily authentic. And right now I have no sponsors because I'm not really competing. The pandemic really changed a lot of that. And so I don't have sponsors. I don't post things that are like, go check out this link, go do this, go do that. I don't necessarily say it's fake, but it feels not authentic and more fake, because especially if I don't actually like the gi and I tell people to go buy this gi kind of thing. I'm over that. I'm kind of over the hashtags. I'm over okay, you got to make reels, but the reels have to be like this, or the TikToks, or I don't want to have to do the social media game anymore. And my followers have gone down, and whatever. I'm trying not to care. I still care a little bit, but I'm trying not to care so much, because the internet is how you connect. It could be a really impactful thing, but it can also be something that eats you up. And I just don't want it to do that anymore. And I'm tired of feeling like I'm lying on the internet. So everything that I feel, I try to really just put out there. And yeah, I don't have as many followers. I don't have as flashy content. I'm not creating content, but I'm also a happier person because of it.
Good for you.
Fantastic.
Erin, are you authentic?
So authentic. Like, I'm so real. I'm like unreal. I'm so real.
Listen, the worst part about this show is that it has to come to the end at some point.
True.
Before we wrap this up, we are starting this brand new thing where somebody sitting in your seat that you might not know asked a question, and we will ask that question to you now. Gary is going to take a lead on that and just create an interesting ending.
Yeah. So if you could go back 25 years, what would you tell the BJJ community?
Oh my God. Well, 25 years ago would be when I was 7.
Yeah, we're talking yourself now.
You have a time machine. You're going back to whatever that year was.
That being a good training partner is more important than being a good competitor.
Wonderful.
The impact that you will make on someone else is done in the gym. I know that we say sometimes you're the nail, sometimes you're the hammer, but also sometimes you can be that voice for that person, either with motivation, or it could be a technique that you help them with, and something that brings them higher to their journey. you can inspire people directly. You don't have to go on the internet or win medals to inspire people. Like that's short term, but long term, when you make an impact on someone, is the dealings that you have every day. So instead of curating your content for the internet, be a good person and look at what's literally right in front of you and how you can impact the person that's in front of you. Because obviously jiu-jitsu is a very connected thing. It's close contact, it's everything to being in front of that person and sharing everything but saliva, maybe. You share sweat, share all those things. So yeah, just making that impact where, like, at home.
Beautiful.
The gym.
Before we wrap this up, where can people find you? Where can our listeners connect with you if they choose to do so? Website, social media?
Instagram. Find me So Authentic on my Instagram, Erin Herle. Also SubmitTheStigma.org. We're currently redoing the website. We're hoping to have that done by the end of the month. And Submit the Stigma Instagram. So I'm pretty much only on Instagram. Like, I pretty much talk to my boyfriend, my long distance boyfriend. We don't even use text. We just use Instagram. So if you want to send me memes, try me. That's how my boyfriend wooed me, with just memes. I post a lot of memes. I'm into it. So that's the best way to find me. And I will always answer those messages.
Beautiful. Thanks for being here with us. Thanks for sharing your story. Obviously, some of those deep things, I'm pretty sure they will be heavily impactful to everybody who's listening to this. Thanks for being here. And if you are ever in Chicago area, make sure to let me know. I would love to have you for some.
We'll go out for a real hot dog.
We'll go for
whatever you say.
All right, Erin. We'll see you around. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Raw Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.